about earlier, want to share it with a colleague, we'll have this posted on the Customer FX website where you will find just hundreds and hundreds of videos about all things related to Infor CRM, including technical and feature functionality type stuff. So you'll see that there shortly later on today. So as you know, 8.2 did come out several months ago, and so we've started on a series of little webinars here to kind of showcase some of the new features and functions, and they're coming at us at just a terrific rate since Infor took over the software. Those of you that perhaps sat in on the Update 01 webinar this morning, you were probably just blown away by what you saw. If you look at what's coming in the near future here and what's on their long-term roadmap. And I know that they recorded that session also, but again, that deals with the Update 01, which is a newer version that I'm actually showing you today. And we will be featuring all the new capabilities of Update 01 in the coming months as well, to sort of do a deep dive like we're doing with Group Manager today. But with that said, what is the Group Manager? Well, it is an administrative function, and so I'll mention that it's available now under the administration area of the nav bar, and you can assign this to a role for your users. So in other words, yes, the administrator login can do everything I'll show you today, but then so can your users that you want to designate, let's say, as your group manager gurus. You can create a role, and that role can be made up of the secured actions that allow them to edit and delete and change the different capabilities of the groups. You could assign that to a user without giving them all of the administrative rights. And so if you happen to do that, they would see the Group Manager under the administration section of the nav bar if you want to delegate that to somebody else. Okay, so groups are nothing new per se. There's always been the ability to create groups and build groups, which are filters. They allow you to filter the data. So for example, in the account screen, we have all of our pre-built groups running across the top. And as you click into those, it filters the record set to show you only the records that meet the filter criteria that you chose. Now, you can also share these groups with others. So one user can build a group and then share that same group with a different user. And up till now, they've had to right-click on the group and choose Share, and that is how the panel would come up that lets you pick and choose who the user is you're sharing it with. And so that functionality and a lot more has now been duplicated. Nothing's gone away as far as how you've always managed groups. But it can be kind of daunting because with some of our customers who have hundreds of groups, this can be just a huge, overwhelming, scrolling list of groups you have to get through to find the ones you want, let alone to do anything with those groups. So in 8.2, they introduced a new entity called the Group Manager. So I went to the administration, Group Manager area, and now we're looking at the Group Manager screen. Like other entities in CRM, you can sort and change how the data is presented. You've also got now quick filters. And so the quick filters mean that, okay, let's say I've got 100 groups in here. I can pick and choose some filters on any of the columns of data that you see. What's the name of it? What family does it belong to? Is it account or opportunity? So you can pick and choose those filters just like you can with these filters on other entities. Now, it makes it really easy to find stuff and navigate around. So today, you know, I have this account one checked, and so I'm only seeing the groups now related to an account entity. So I've got 16 instead of 100 that I have to try to get through. And in this particular list, you can see all of the groups that are available to all the users, whatever user, inside of Infor CRM. And as you highlight a particular group, you'll notice that down below, there's some additional details that show up about that group. Is it shared? Who owns that group, which means who created the group originally, who's the author, the company. Now I'm going to talk about these 4 fields: author, company, company version, and dev. You're going to only have access to those pieces of data about a group if you created the group in the application architect or the architect. So as you know, you can have a developer build a group for you in the administrator and the application architect, and they actually control that group. And in that case, it's in the dev mode, and they can actually control it with versioning. And so I bring that up because in the web client and in the group manager, you don't have access to alter those particular 4 fields. Those you can only alter or edit in the application architect or the architect itself. I don't think that really matters, but I just wanted to point that out if you're confused by, well, what are these columns, these last 4 or so that are in here? That's what they are. They're used to control in a development release offline. Anytime you build a new group in the web client, it's going to automatically appear. It's going to automatically be available when you save it and record who you were. That's the owner. That's who was logged in when the group was created. You can see most of them are owned by the administrator. But here's a group that Ed happened to build, which is why it says Ed Martini. All right, so in addition to being able to filter those, I have this latest accounts group highlighted, and you'll notice down below, I can view that group. So if I just want to quickly see what are the records that are in that group, and so you can click on it, happens to be none in this case. You can see the records that are in the group you were on, and you can always hit the back screen and go back, or back button and go back to the groups. You can also edit the group right from here. So if we click on customers, it brings up the standard query builder. Again, nothing new here, just a different way to get to the screen interface that allows you to set your conditions and your layout and sort orders and things like that. It's a very simple way to get to the same place. You can also delete groups from here, and you can change who they're shared with. And so a lot of these groups are shared with several people or everyone, which means all users have access to that group that was shared. But one of the other things you can do, which is neat, is you can reassign the owner of the group. Because remember I said whoever is logged in and creates a group, they own that group. That's what the default behavior is. But as a group manager or user, you can come in and say, well, yeah, I know Ed built the group, but I want to make it, I want to give it to Dan Barrett as the owner, so now he can edit that group. Where if it was shared with him, he can use the group, but he has to make a copy of it to actually edit the group or change any of the conditions. So this is a pretty nice way to move ownership of the groups around if that is something you want to do. Now the next tab you'll see here is called Shares. It's the same data, same listing view, except that it now has some additional data in the columns that describe sharing. What date was it shared? Who was it shared with? And is it a system-wide, an everyone group? Or in the example of these last 2 at the bottom, there's actually one group in here called OneSave, but it's shared with 2 different users, Kathy and Tom. And so even though it's the same group, you can control which individual users of your system that group is shared with. And so right from here, I could say, well, Tom doesn't use this group anymore, doesn't need it anymore. So I can highlight and delete him from the share. And it's as simple as doing that. And now that particular group is only shared with, in this case, Kathy Hughes. Okay, so then the next tab we want to look at is the usage tab. And the usage tab is really valuable because what we have found with a lot of our customers is that over the years, they get a lot of groups that nobody uses. Sounded like a good idea at the time, but not relevant anymore. So now across my entity, I have tons of tabs that I don't know what these groups are. I don't know what they do. I'd love to get rid of them. So this gives you kind of a methodical way to view groups and make decisions about, can you start purging some of these out of here because we don't use them anymore. So for example, this all accounts group, you can see that it's been used 26 times. Now compared to some of these other groups, they haven't been used at all by anybody, or maybe once years ago. Well, to me, that's a candidate. Get rid of it and clean up the interface to make the system a little more user-friendly. And so that's what these shares, or usage rather, allows you to see is how much is it getting used. And you can also see that in this customers group, the owner, which is the administrator, used it 6 times, and that a user that it's been shared with has used it twice. So you kind of get a better sense about who's using it and how much are they using it. Again, this data has always been available in the database, but it's never been shown to you on any screen, so you never really knew which groups people were using or not. So I think this is a great feature and a very useful feature, certainly with some of the older systems that have been around forever with lots of groups built into them. Now, the other thing you can do is you can clear the statistics. So let's say that maybe you modify this customer group because it hasn't been used very much, but maybe if you tweaked it a little bit, people would start using it more. So you have the ability to reset the statistics. So you can see owner used it 6 times, somebody else used it twice, and so you can go ahead and reset that back to 0, and it'll remove the usage. Now, when people start using that group again, of course that number is going to start climbing back up again. So just